Hello everybody, and welcome back to more G-Senjou no Maou with me, Phantom Zwei. So, things have really been heating up with the hostage situation with Tsubaki's little brother Hiroaki. Mao's got him kidnapped, got Usami involved. She's basically going to try to catch Maou. We got Kyosuke over here. The question is he Maou or not? It certainly seems like we're playing on that fact with him having all the headaches. But is it true or is it not? Time will tell, right? So, let's get right into it. The morning chill seemed to touch colder today. Alright, I've got a full day ahead of me too. Finishing up the preparations for the day, I walked to the door, only to have the cell in my chest pocket suddenly ring. Hello? It was Tsubaki. Ah, it's no problem. Has something happened? Oh. I pretended to be surprised. That's a lot of pressure. Can you do it by yourself? I sensed a steeled resolution in Tsubaki's voice. I'm sorry that I can't be with you at a time like this. Well, I still have work to do. I'll come right over after I'm finished. Yeah, after I'm finished. I hung up and walked out the door. Finally. I couldn't contain my amusement. A smile tugged at my lips. Let's enjoy this little game, shall we? "9 o'clock in the morning. Haru's mind was clear as the winter sky.
よーし、Tsubaki。一丁我々の友情パワーを犯人に見せつけてやろうじゃないか。
Oh!
はるちゃん、元気いいね。お前こそちゃんと身代金持ったか？
Tsubaki was holding the certificates in an envelope, cradling it like a precious child. After waving to Tsubaki's parents, who had walked the pair to the door, the two of them left for Central Boulevard. Where did all these people come from? Even at noon on Central Boulevard, the monstrous crowd is out of the ordinary. Even at noon, this monstrous crowd, yeah.
ねえ、はるちゃん。なんだ？私たちって一緒に行動していいのかな？
Tsubaki's stride was getting heavier by the second. Haru matched her footsteps, moving in tandem.
ダメだとは言われていない。
In fact, Haru was under the impression that Maou was practically inviting her to participate in this incident.
ただ、私は離れて行動した方がいいとも思う。
Maou had likely anticipated Haru's involvement. If so, then instead of delivering the ransom with Tsubaki, it would be better to try to hide and pounce on Maou at the most opportune moment. For example, the best chance of nabbing Maou might come when his attention is focused on Tsubaki during the exchange.
どうするの？
Tsubaki asked. She must still be worried about going alone.
大丈夫だ。そばにいる。そう？ただし、少し距離を置いて、椿を遠目に見守るような形を取らせてもらう。
Tsubaki tilted her head dubiously.
じゃあ、これから私たちはお互いに連絡を取り合えないの？そうなる。そっか。
Haru put her hand on Tsubaki's shoulder.
窮地に陥っているようなら、颯爽と助けに行く。
That's the role of the hero. That one sentence made Tsubaki relax, if only a little bit. A hint of crimson flashed across her face, and she nodded.
最後に、何でも言って。
Sorry about that. Ugh. Attack of the sneeze.
私は極力犯人を捕まえようとする。だが、万が一取り逃がしてしまった場合、身代金だけは奪われないように動くつもりだ。そうなの？
Tsubaki frowned again, apprehensive once more. Tsubaki must still want to follow the instructions of the kidnapper and give him the ransom.
いいか、椿。たとえ犯人に逃げられても、身代金さえ手元にあれば、もう一度交渉のチャンスはつかめる。
Mao will try to contact the family again in order to get the ransom, and after that, a second battle will ensue. This should be true, but a foreboding feeling wriggled about in Haru's gut. One can claim that Haru's speculations are appropriate, but they make a critical assumption that Mao's goal is to get the ransom. To the best of her knowledge, though, this crime wasn't committed by a person who needs money. Just how much is 50 million yen in shares to Mao? Still, Haru remains stubbornly convinced that Mao is just trying to provoke her. In Mao's eyes, it might be less of a challenge and more of a game. Whatever the case, if Mao intends to defeat Haru, she would simply have to beat him to the punch. Of course, there's a chance that Mao might kill Hiroaki-kun out of retaliation when he realizes his defeat. Haru couldn't tear this unsettling thought from her mind.
はるちゃん、昨日も言ったけど、はるちゃんのいいようにして。
ありがとう。そう言ってくれると思っていた。
Tsubaki stuck out her tongue.
はるちゃんって不思議な人だね。
なんだ急に。
ドヨーンとしたり、キリッとしたり、一体どれが本当のはるちゃんなの？そう。
To be looked into by another gave Haru a tingling feeling.
はるちゃんって転校多かったんじゃない？
まあ。
そっか、大変だったね。
As kind as she was, Tsubaki must have realized that Haru probably didn't have many friends.
おい椿、私はよく気持ちが悪いと言われる。
Her words, seemingly coming from nowhere, shocked Tsubaki wide-eyed.
気持ちが悪かったら縁を切ってもらって構わないんだぞ。
Haru thought of the past. The past where she perpetually hid her loneliness behind a lone wolf attitude and a cynical facade. However, Tsubaki's response was firm.
悲しいこと言わないで。
Surprised, Haru looked at Tsubaki.
お友達だよ、はるちゃんは。
Just why would such a pure girl exist in real life? Tsubaki's gaze was firm, charismatic even. Haru decided in the back of her mind to do everything in her power for Tsubaki, no matter what happened. She couldn't understand the reason behind it, and Haru's confusion showed on her face.
最後に一つだけ聞きたい。
さっきも最後にって言ってなかったっけ？
これが本当に最後だ。そしてかなり重要なことだ。
うん。
Haru fixed her gaze on Tsubaki.
椿は浅井さんのことが好きなのか？
Tsubaki obviously hadn't expected that, as she blushed red.
どうなんだ？どうなんだと聞いているんだ。
好きだよ。もちろん。あんなに頼りになる人いないよ。ふーんって。
So her first impression was correct. Haru's emotions grew complicated. On the contrary, Tsubaki's mind seemed to have already cleared up.
何にしてもありがとう、はるちゃん。
Tsubaki said.
ひろあきが帰ってきたらいっぱいお話ししようね。
Haru nodded. This time, it was Tsubaki's words that helped Haru relax. After all, she had just gained an excellent friend. Tsubaki Vision! It was already 11:10, and again, I love this music. Here we go. Do-do-do-do-do. Anyway. Tsubaki glanced at the clock on Central Boulevard to double-check the time. After parting with Haru, she had been on her own, following the kidnapper's instructions by herself. Almost right after the mall opened, she walked in. Per the criminal's demands, she spent 6,000 yen on a cheap attache case. The ransom, worth virtually everything the entire family owns, was already in that briefcase. Tsubaki dialed on the cell phone Haru gave her. It was strong in both battery life and signal.
もしもし。
The call connected quickly. The kidnapper's captivating voice circled around her ear.
いでケースを用意した。デパートの開店は11時だからな。
She had no idea what he was talking about. She had no choice but to rush when her brother's life was on the line.
今後迅速な行動を期待する。
Tsubaki could only give a faint response.
今はセントラル街だな。
はい。
そのまま歩いてオフィス街に来てもらおう。山王物産の本社ビルが見える広い公園があるのはわかる。
公園のどこに行けばいいんでしょうか。
園内には大きな掲示板がある。そのそばで落ち合おう。
わかりました。
急げ。
The call was suddenly disconnected. Tsubaki stopped and looked around, searching for Haru. However, sweeping her gaze through the bustling sea of people, she couldn't spot that attention-grabbing hair. She should be following me right now. Tsubaki gripped her briefcase, cutting through the chaotic streets. 30 minutes, at the very most. 20 minutes should be enough to reach the park from the department store on foot, even for a girl. Even though I told Tsubaki that we would meet, I have no intentions of fulfilling that promise. I need to confirm one thing before I take the ransom. Whether or not the delivery person is truly obedient to the kidnapper. In other words, I need to determine whether or not she has the sense of responsibility and the stamina required for a successful exchange. And most importantly, whether or not she's contacted the police. So, 30 minutes. My gaze followed the minute hand on my watch. I believe that if she's not here within 30 minutes, then without a doubt the police will be coming with her. If Tsubaki's family has ignored my warnings and called the police, there might be over 100 officers watching Tsubaki deliver the ransom. In order to capture me, countless police officers would have already begun setting an inescapable net at the park. However, no matter how quickly the task force responds, doing so would still take a considerable amount of time. After all, the police would have to move everyone from Central Boulevard to this park. They wouldn't allow Tsubaki to proceed until they'd finished organizing their members. That's why I'm being so sensitive to the time. If I don't spot Tsubaki within 30 minutes, I have no choice but to cancel the exchange. Visibility in the park is excellent. If there are undercover cops about, I might be able to spot them. However, I don't have the confidence to say that I could do so with absolute certainty. For instance, if you were to ask me who stands out the most, there are two middle-aged couples, a man walking a dog, a man who looks like he's on his way to the office, and an old man helping a pregnant woman. There are just too many suspects. Thus, the least I should do is remember the faces of everyone here. That way, if a person with a familiar face shows up as I order Tsubaki around, I can determine with high confidence that the person is with the police. I sat on a bench, scanning the area, searching for the signs of law enforcement. I saw Tsubaki. She was sprinting to the billboard with all her strength. A girl wearing casual clothes and carrying an attache. Is that attache? Anyway. Case is very conspicuous. If a person with an overactive imagination saw Tsubaki right now, they might think that she looks like she's running to deliver a ransom. I checked the time. It's been less than 15 minutes since last contact. Well then, it's about time to issue the next order. However, I need to act under the assumption that there are already undercover police searching the park. If that is indeed the case, then I definitely can't call her immediately. The moment Tsubaki picks up, they'll be searching the park frantically for anyone talking on a phone. Before leaving, I took a second look at Tsubaki in the distance. Even from afar, I could see that she was nervous. Tsubaki vision, engage! She waited for almost an hour. Tsubaki was nearly suffocating from the anxiety. Even though she came to the appointed place, not a single person who seemed like the kidnapper has shown up. The only people who have come to talk to her are flirtatious young men, not knowing anything about the situation. Her cell phone suddenly rang. The kidnapper is calling.
はい、ちゃんといますよ。
She yelled into the phone. The kidnapper groaned in discontent.
少し騒がしいぞ、椿。大声を出すな。周りの人間に不審に思われる。ただでさえアタッシュケースを手に持った格好というのは、お前のような少女には不釣り合いなのか。
せん。
The kidnapper's instructions are what made her stand out so badly, but she kept this thought to herself out of fear.
それでこのケースはどうすればいいんでしょうか。
大事に持っておけ。予定変更だ。受け渡し場所を変更する。
Tsubaki was lost. She searched for Haru without thinking, but she couldn't find even a thread of her being.
セントラル街の駅に行け。改札の近くにロッカールームが。使用禁止の紙が貼られたコインロッカーを探せ。
待ってください。今書き留めます。
Lodging the cell phone between her head and shoulder, she used her free hands to open her diary.
ロッカーの中に身代金の詰まったケースを入れて鍵をしろ。
使用禁止じゃないんですか。
安心しろ。実はちゃんと使える。
The warning was probably prepared by him beforehand. Tsubaki waited for her next instructions.
ロッカーの鍵をしっかりとかけたら、次にその鍵を持って電車に乗れ。行き先は終点の桜扇町だ。
桜扇町。
That's the final stop of the line, in the next prefecture. From Central Boulevard, the trip will take 2 hours. Just what is he planning to have me do, calling me out that far?
向こうの駅に着いたら改札を出た後で待て。
また連絡をもらえるんですか。
いいや、お前から連絡してこい。急げ。
わかりました。次こそ会えるんですよね。
椿がいい子にしていた。
He used a frivolous tone. He's probably just messing with her. Tsubaki's unreleased emotions are rising and crashing inside her chest, waiting to explode at the lightest touch.
あなたの言うことは守ります。だから絶対に弟を返してください。
Flames of anger began to swell within the girl. Yet even with Tsubaki in this state, the kidnapper spoke to her in a mocking tone.
返さなかったらどうする。
許さない。
She herself was surprised at the strength and harshness in her words. An unbearable silence followed. Terror attacked her. She may have angered the kidnapper. An inappropriate provocation may bring about disaster upon Hiroaki. If that truly happened, how could she possibly endure the knowledge that she was responsible? The criminal spoke quietly.
私がお前を人間にしてやる。
Huh. A very gonzo line, isn't it? His words only confused her. Just as she was about to ask, the connection was cut. Into a human? Does that have some kind of philosophical meaning? She's never been good at understanding hidden meanings. And besides, it's natural for her not to understand the ideas of an evildoer, a man who kidnapped a child. She collected her feelings and walked into the station. As she was waiting for the lights to change, someone spoke out to her.
椿、そのまま聞け。
It's Usami! Hi, Usami! How are you? Tsubaki had no idea when she appeared, but Haru was standing by her side. She spoke to Tsubaki, keeping her eyes straight ahead rather than looking at her.
お前は犯人の指示をメモに取っているな。
日記に。
じゃあそのページだけ破って歩きながらそれとなく捨ててくれ。
わかったよ。
The light turned green. People began to surge forward. Once she got to the other end of the crosswalk, Tsubaki looked back behind her. Haru was already nowhere to be seen. Even now, Tsubaki had a sense of resistance to littering. But when she realized Haru would pick it up immediately, she felt a little better about it. Oh, she's such a ridiculously good girl. 2 hours and 10 minutes had passed. If one hurried, they should have been able to get to the park, from the park to Sakuraogi City in 2 hours. If it takes Tsubaki any longer, there is again the possibility of police involvement. I, of course, am still on Central Boulevard. After finishing all my preparations, I sat in the back seat of a car and gazed at the scenery outside. The populace ignored the cruelty of winter's cold, and the streets grew even livelier. A panicked voice came through the other end of the line.
もしもし。
Are you there?
はい。どこに行けばいいんですか。
I hope you didn't lose the key.
ちゃんと持ってます。どうすればいいんですか？
I gave her the instruction decided upon a long time ago. Come back. Ignoring Tsubaki, who was in an utterly morbid state, I continued. Come back and retrieve the briefcase from the locker.
どうしてですか？
There's no reason for me to explain.
だって何のためにこんな遠くまで。
To get the ransom, of course.
ひょっとしてまだ警察のことを疑っているんですか？
Who knows?
だったらこんなことは無駄です。本当に警察には連絡してないんですから。
It's clear from her voice that she would like nothing better than to just give me the ransom right this second. There's no police involvement.
はい、絶対です。
There's a reason she had to go from Metsu to Ogi City. Blech. Police take their respective jurisdictions seriously. If Tsubaki was being backed by the police, then this kidnapping investigation would have to be transferred to the other prefecture. Thus, the arrangement of personnel would be put into disorder once more. Such an event would considerably hinder police mobilization in this prefecture. Of course, there is a chance that the police departments have made contact previously, and are working together. However, police are people who are very conscious of territory, if not quite at Yakuza level. According to my judgment, the police of Tomanbetsu and Sakuraogi City won't rally together for just a kidnapping incident. Still, it's a good thing I didn't send her to Tokyo. That was my original plan. I never would have guessed that this prefecture and the Tokyo Police Department keep an unexpectedly good relationship. I only found this out a short while ago. That was dangerous. Fine. I will believe you. Tsubaki's actions are swift, without hesitation. At the very least, she shouldn't have had time to be in close contact with the police. Next time, I promise, next time, I will retrieve the ransom. I was finally confident that I had done enough to preclude the police's involvement and continue on with this battle.
ケースをロッカーから出した後、どこに持っていけばいいんですか？
Take the subway to the residential area in the southern district.
はい。
I'm going to give you the address you need to go to. Tsubaki confirmed the address after I told her the details. A white car will be parked there. Its door will be unlocked. Take the ransom and sit in the back seat.
それでどうするんですか？
Wait for me to arrive. Are you uneasy? Does the thought of being in a cramped car alone with me frighten you? I laughed coldly.
何を考えているんですか？
I was hoping to go for a ride. I'm really looking forward to it. I hung up and commanded the driver to go. Tsubaki Vision, engage! Part 2. After another 2 hours or so, Tsubaki stepped back onto Central Boulevard. The sun sets early in winter. It was already evening by the time she arrived at the southern district.
おい椿。
It was Haru. She had suddenly appeared behind Tsubaki, calling her name. Haru spoke abruptly.
お前が桜扇町に行っている間、私はケースの入ったロッカーをずっと見張っていた。ロッカーを開けようとした不審な人物はいなかった。
そうなんだ。
She didn't go with me to Sakuraogi City.
椿を追うか、ロッカーを見張るか。迷ったが後者を選択した。なぜなら、誘拐犯が鍵を手に入れたとしても、身代金が欲しければ、必ずロッカーを開けなければならないからだ。
Haru's explanation was more than enough to wipe away the anxiety in Tsubaki's heart.
もう少し人手があればよかった。
Haru said these words with a hint of loneliness. The moment she finished, she once again disappeared into the sea of people. Tsubaki felt an ache in her heart. Maybe Haru doesn't even have a single friend that she can rely on. Without thinking, she murmured, "If Kyosuke were with me, I'm certain that he'd have all the courage I needed." Tsubaki savagely whipped her weak heart for that sentiment. Wishing for unobtainable things won't bring her brother back to her. Her grip on the briefcase tightened as she headed towards the southern district. She had no idea why she called out Kyosuke's name. Tsubaki has pretty much never been there before, and the Southern District is, as a whole, a very quiet residential area. The setting sun has dyed the newly built western houses and metal fences surrounding them to a bloody red. Tsubaki checked the address again as she searched for her destination.
あった。
She saw the car. It was your everyday white sedan. Tsubaki didn't know what the kidnapper's car would be like. Thankfully, there was only one white car at the designated place. Sit in the back seat. Her heartbeat grew violent. She had never dreamed to be going on a ride with a kidnapper. He might even hold her captive. Nevertheless, in the end, she still wanted her brother to be released. And for Hiroaki, sacrificing herself would be an easy price to pay. Tsubaki walked closer to the car, trembling as she rounded the bumper. Hesitantly, she forced herself to peer through the window. There was no one inside. She decisively reached for the door handle. Tsubaki slid into the back seat. She put the briefcase containing the ransom on her knee, letting a deep breath flow from her lips to calm herself. Silence reigned. The car was almost completely devoid of sound. Small beads of sweat soaked through her palm. The only noise that reached her ears was her own heartbeat. The silence only made her wait more torturous. She was being tortured by anxiety. The moment she closed her eyes, Hiroaki's face floated before her. Where is he right now? Is he eating well? I just want to hurry up and see him. Hearing the ring of her cell, Tsubaki instinctively opened her eyes. She retrieved the cell phone from her pocket in a panic.
車の中の居心地はどうだ?
It was the kidnapper.
せっかくのドライブなのに安い車で申し訳ないな。
She didn't understand him. What does it matter how much the car costs? Tsubaki had read in a book before that men put great focus on appearances. To her, it was something incomprehensible.
まだですか?
今行く。
However, at that instant, the kidnapper suddenly lowered his voice.
どういうことだ?
His voice changed. It lost the ease it once held.
何かあったんですか?
Her question wasn't answered. After a brief silence, the call was disconnected. Yet another unexpected event was hurled towards Tsubaki, still confused by the kidnapper's last words. Someone rapped on the car window. Following the sound, there was a face Tsubaki had never seen before. It stared down her down emotionlessly. A hat and uniform. She trembled. Her jaw hung wide open. The one thing the criminals fear the most stood just beyond the car window. Police! Tsubaki sank into terror, having no idea what she should do about the sudden appearance of the police. Her knees were shaking. The police officer was asking her to get out. Her vision was hazy, dizziness gnawed at her, and her stomach lurched in it with every motion. Tsubaki stepped out like a mindless robot. When she opened the door, she put the briefcase down on the seat almost subconsciously. The man was repeating a question that she didn't know how to answer. Does this car belong to you? Tsubaki was more nervous than she'd ever been in her life as she listened to the policeman's questions like an uninvolved bystander. What are you doing here? Tsubaki shook her head, making meaningless sounds such as ah and eh. She thought she managed to reply that everything was fine. However, the policeman kept on saying, "This is standard procedure, just answer." They also mentioned something about the possibility of the car being stolen, and other things along that line. She was completely incoherent. She had never been spoken to by a police officer before. She almost wet herself from fear. Oops. If the kidnapper saw her with the police, how would she explain? There are two of them. There are also two bicycles. But those are only fleeting images before her eyes. What's that briefcase? One policeman pointed to the car behind her. Can we check inside it? That question jerked her slightly back into her senses. A strange sensation of purpose began to take hold of her.
目です。
It was as soft as the buzz of a mosquito. Even though her head was lowered, she clearly demonstrated her rejection. She didn't know when it happened, but the policeman in front of her was holding a briefcase.
ダメです。
It was the briefcase with the ransom inside. The briefcase containing her brother's life. If they looked through it, the police would know about the kidnapping. When this train of thought surged through her mind, fear that she'd never be able to see her brother again rushed towards her. That fear purged all reason, and Tsubaki lost track of her own actions. A freakish scream burst forth into the air. She reached out her hands and grabbed something tightly as she could. Her fingertips felt the cool, hard shell of the briefcase. The policeman said something, but Tsubaki never heard a word. She was running. She was facing away from the policeman. A yell for her to stop may have reached her back, but not her brain. Fear. Yet her legs, as if they didn't belong to her, but some other animal, kept on sprinting. She ran away, wordless, panting, dizzy, almost falling down. She felt as though she too had become a criminal. Driven by guilt and oxygen deprivation, her tears couldn't be stopped anymore. But there was no time for her to cry anymore.
すみません。
Having successfully escaped and now making her way through the bustling crowd on Central Boulevard, Tsubaki was still on edge.
すみません。でも逃げましたから。身代金ありますから。
She begged with all that she had. The kidnapper answered with a voice colder than those she had heard before.
なぜ謝る？あれはハプニングだったのだろう。
はい、知りません。警察の人がいるなんて知りませんでした。
知らなかったのならなぜ謝る必要があるのだ。警察と示し合わせていたのでなければ頭を下げる理由がわからない。
それはただなんとなく。
The person on the other end of the line didn't let down his guard.
裏切ったな。
違います。
私をあそこで捕まえる算段だったのだろう。
本当です。信じてください。
もういい。取引は中止だ。
そんな。
She felt as if her head had just been struck by a blunt object. If this continues, Hiroaki is gone.
何でもします。何でもしますから弟には手を出さないで。お願いです。お願い。
By the end of her pleading, she was unable to even form sentences. Her eyes were filled with tears.
そんなに弟が大事か。
もちろんです。
なぜだ。
焦って家族だから。
At that, the kidnapper laughed coldly.
そうか。家族だからか。そうだな。家族は大切にしなくてはな。
He continued with a mocking tone.
椿はさぞ大切に育てられて清く正しく成長したんだろう。
どういう意味ですか。
言葉通りの意味だ。お前からにじみ出る善良さが眩しくて仕方ない。
Tsubaki understood that comment even less. Everyone always says that she's a good person. Kyosuke had even joked about it. But isn't everyone else good too? Come on, I'm begging you to stop being so naive.
善良さというものは大抵の場合偽装した悪徳に過ぎないと私は思っているが、どうやら椿は一味違うようだな。
She just couldn't take it anymore.
いいだろう。取引を続ける。
ありがとうございます。
She lowered her head in thanks without thinking about it. Even in this outrageous situation, she still showed her gratitude to the criminal.
もう少し慎重にやらせてもらうとしよう。今後はたとえ警察が絡んでいても身代金を受け取れる手順を踏ませてもらう。
Tsubaki was beginning to think that the kidnapper is still human after all. As long as she just asks him with sincerity, he'll understand. He might even have a good reason for kidnapping Hiroaki. For the first time, Tsubaki found herself interested in the kidnapper's thoughts and feelings. So interested, in fact, that she completely missed the point when she had stopped asking questions, the point when she became completely obedient. The sun had set. The young winter wind carries a chill, that is. I lean on the railing, continuing my conversation with Tsubaki. After that exchange, I had Tsubaki go to the Western District and a nearby city, there and back. The forms of transportation included walking, cable car, taxi, and other methods. As promised, everything was done with utmost care. The area in the Southern District is already in an uproar over Tsubaki. A girl holding an attaché case is always very conspicuous. With someone that suspicious, there's always the possibility that an upstanding citizen might report her. And one can't say that the police won't connect a suspicious person with a kidnapping. Still, it would be practically impossible for the police to both become certain that the suspicious person is Tsubaki, and to find out that she's the victim of a kidnapping within all within a single day. I will retrieve the ransom today. I've left no evidence behind. That white car was stolen anyway. Its disposal has already been prepared. It'll be no more than just a piece of scrap metal in a factory in another prefecture by morning. If one was worried about the police finding some trace of evidence from the car, then his time would be better spent worrying about the possibility of a catastrophic eruption of Mount Fuji happening at exactly noon tomorrow. Almost everything is prepared. The only thing left is Usami. She seemed to have been trailing Tsubaki, only keeping her distance. Even though I'd been watching for Usami as I kept track of Tsubaki, I couldn't find her at all. That freakish hair is completely unfit for following people, but that may be where the blind spot is. With hair that long, changing hairstyles is a snap. With a hat and glasses, she would become a different person in an instant. Yet in the end, I will be the one to take the ransom. In the meantime, I'll have them run around and waste their strength. Another headache attacked me, but this time I must endure it. I can't surrender to this headache right now. A depression was fiercely burning inside me, igniting my will to fight. I won't let you interfere, neither you Azai, nor Usami. Come on out, Maou. It's already around 8 o'clock. Haru had been running around here and there, all across the city, since before noon. Now, after nightfall, she's returned to the park in the Eastern District. Haru hid herself in the grass, not making a single sound for fear of being heard over the silence of her surroundings. This park is a place where people come to relax during the day, but at night, only an eerie quiet remains. She wondered how Tsubaki was holding up after all this walking. Before coming to the park, Tsubaki had been told to lock the briefcase in the locker again. Taking only the key, she came to a garbage can in the park. Haru didn't even glance at the locker this time around, and chose to follow Tsubaki instead. If someone wanted to get the ransom, they must get closer to the locker, and to open the locker, they would need the key. And there's even someone watching the locker. Haru had run into Kyosuke on Central Boulevard. After she explained things, Kyosuke was more than happy to help. Even though he said he was helping his father, he had a surprising amount of free time. So Kyosuke is, at least he says, watching the locker. But is he actually just following them as Maou? Is that true? What's real, what's not? Tsubaki's cell phone rang. Haru concentrated on the noises around her. It would be bad if she showed her face right now. She could only follow the situation through sound. Tsubaki's exhaustion made itself apparent in her voice. It's understandable. She's been in a state of heightened anxiety all day. She'd almost fainted when the police had showed up. She didn't know whether or not Tsubaki was doing it on purpose, but Tsubaki had repeated the kidnapper's instructions. As Tsubaki finished the conversation, Haru heard the sound of a cell phone closing. Footsteps followed. As the footfalls grew quieter, it seemed that Tsubaki had left the area. Haru remained still, curling her body into a ball. If she just stayed there, Maou would definitely come to retrieve the key. No, that's wrong. Was she exhausted as well? There's no way Maou would show up. After all, Tsubaki still had the key. She'd been listening closely all the while, but she didn't hear the sound of Tsubaki dropping anything into the garbage can. Tsubaki said, "So I should just throw the key into the garbage can?" However, that was most likely something she just said by chance. If Tsubaki were repeating Mao's instructions intentionally, she could have supplemented herself through other actions to further detail the situation. She could have even thrown the key in with excessive force, or made sure to speak out and to confirm that she did so after throwing it in. What's more, if Tsubaki were really repeating his instructions for Haru's sake, then the last thing she said, "I'm on my way," would be too vague for Haru to determine where she would be going. Maou and Tsubaki's conversation was probably something along these lines. So I should just throw the key into the garbage can? No, wait. Go to Central Boulevard instead. I understand. I'm on my way. Tsubaki has grown even more afraid of Maou after her encounter with the police. She's probably so anxious that her heart is about to explode. In a situation like this one, it's easy to imagine that she wouldn't have the energy to concern herself with what Haru was up to. That was a moment that decided everything. Simply interpreting a sentence incorrectly could have caused her to retire before this ordeal came to a conclusion.
それにしてもいつになったら現れるんだ。
Even as she spoke, Haru felt the time of battle rumbling towards her with impatient force. How many places has she been dragged to now? She's forgotten how many times she's changed locations. Continuously in a state of extreme tension, Tsubaki is puffing with every word.
頑張るか、椿。
The kidnapper was on the phone.
もう9時になるか。そろそろ弟たちを寝かしつける時間じゃないか。
次は
Tsubaki asked, breathing hard.
お金は必ず渡しますから、弟を返してください。
そればかりだ。
ヒロアキが帰ってくればそれでいいんです。
だが本当にいいのか。身代金を渡したりしていいのか。
What are you saying at this point? Tsubaki already lacks the strength to think things through.
その金は家族の全財産ではないのか。
はい。
金を失えば弟は帰ってくるかもしれんが、お前たちは路頭に迷うことになるのではないか。それでもいいのか。
弟の命には変えられませんから。
The criminal sighed, impressed.
命は金に変えられないというが、果たして本当にそうなのかな。
当たり前です。お金より大事に決まっているじゃないですか。
そういった決まり文句こそ貧乏を経験したことのない何よりの証拠だと思うのだ。
Sure, Tsubaki has never seen her parents worried about being poor. Her family might not be rich, but they're definitely not impoverished. Excuse me. Voice is giving out a little bit. I'm recording this one right after the previous one, so... The kidnapper just kept repeating questions that she couldn't understand. These subjects confused her. Just what did they have to do with the ransom?
早く終わらせませんか。
もう限界か。
いえ、ただいつまで続くのかと。
弟の命がかかっているのに弱音を吐くのか。
In an instant, the flame in Tsubaki's heart burned again.
違います。弟に早く会いたいだけです。
Utterly unforgivable. Tsubaki immediately began to doubt herself for feeling such intense hatred for this unforgivable criminal. Excuse me. But the moment her words had burst the dam, she couldn't stop.
許さないから。ヒロアキに何かしたら許さないから。
She could no longer understand anything. What's happened to the self that was worried about the kidnapper's feelings? What would happen if she provoked him again? I just want to see Hiroaki. That was the only thought in her heart. The kidnapper suddenly spoke up.
次が最後の指示。今すぐ駅のロッカーからケースを回収しろ。そして9時半までにセントラル街のハンバーガーショップの前まで来い。
Just the burger place. No name, just the burger place. If you said that in America, it'd be like, which one? Anyway, there's no longer any time to write in her diary.
9時半ですか。
It'll be a stretch to make the trip in the short amount of time remaining.
急げばなんとか間に合う。店の前の歩道にケースを置いてすぐに走り去る。
わかりました。
She can only obey.
遅れたら弟の命はない。今度は絶対だ。身代金を確認したら追って連絡する。
The call ended. Tsubaki kept the cell to her ear for a moment longer. She had never thought that paying the ransom would be so exhausting. The kidnapper said this would be the last place. Up until now, he said that every single time, and it was a lie every single time. Still, this time feels different. She thought of the family waiting for her at home. Her parents are probably worried about her. I'll be back soon. Haru Vision, engage! Haru chased after Tsubaki with all her strength as she sprinted through Central Boulevard. She rushed into the station and retrieved the briefcase. Tsubaki might be tired, but she still moves amazingly quickly. It's like she's using every ounce of strength remaining in her body. The train station was in chaos. She had no time to look for Kyosuke, who was supposed to be guarding the locker. Damn it. Haru swept her gaze across the chaotic street. Her line of sight was blocked almost completely. Young people filled the street like a mudslide. Just how many people had she bumped into already? The shape of Tsubaki's coat would often get swallowed up by the sea of people, momentarily gone without a trace. This is the route that Haru usually takes on the way home after work, but this is the first time that she's seen it this crowded. She noted the reason for this almost instantly. Ah, okay, that was today. A live television broadcast. Everyone who wanted to see canon or be on television pressed closer to the stage. On the other end of the road, there were cars from the station and staff manning equipment. This is the moment Maou has been waiting for. It was so chaotic, it was suffocating. Truly an excellent chance to grab the ransom.
Tsubaki!
Haru wants to stop Tsubaki and ask her where she's bringing the ransom, but her shouts were lost in the din of the crowd. Tsubaki didn't have the time for questions anyway. Maou must be urging her on. To have Tsubaki at a speed he's never asked of her before meant that to Maou, this is the moment where the winner will be decided. If I'm going to act, it has to be now. Haru charged towards Tsubaki. Where's Waldo? There's Tsubaki! Tsubaki, breathing hard, finally reached her destination. She relentlessly prayed, "Please don't let it be 9:30. The girl pushes through the sea of people, surging straight forward, knocking into the crowd. People yell and curse at her. She causes a lot of people a lot of trouble. However, she can't spare the time to apologize anymore. She was in a hurry. She even fell down, dropping the briefcase onto the ground. That briefcase, more important than a life. She held it tightly as she crossed the deluge of people with blinding speed. Tsubaki stopped. She looked around casually. It should be okay to just drop it here, right? It wouldn't be picked up by someone who isn't involved in this, would it? The kidnapper said to put down the briefcase and run. At that moment, an unbelievably bright voice shot through the crowd from the nearby amplifiers. It's canon. Tsubaki was speechless, unable to believe her ears. Why is canon? It was way beyond her comprehension. Still, she heard it clearly. It's 9:30. If I don't drop the briefcase and run, Hiroaki is dead. Now, excuse me. At the exact moment Tsubaki set the attaché case on the ground, I went into action. I walked through the crowd, closing in on the briefcase quickly. I gripped the briefcase tightly. It's been less than 5 seconds since it left its previous owner. Everyone's eyes are focused on the radiant entrance of the famous figure skater, Azai Kennen. This confusion is what I wanted. I've been waiting all day to coordinate my retrieval of the ransom with this broadcast. This chaos is what I wanted. Even if the police were right behind me, I have confidence that I would escape. That would be true for one reason alone. I'm simply too familiar with this city. I've considered many escape routes. Usami is simply a girl. What can she do? That maybe? A shout from behind me penetrated the din of the spectacle. It was Usami. It seems that she's been closely following Tsubaki. She caught a glimpse of me. Anyway, Usami, just how many people do you think are carrying briefcases in the bustle of people so close to the business district? As I expected, no one paid any attention to me. Shouting is useless now. I straightened up, walking casually. If there was a thief, they'd be running for their life. No one would think that I was the kidnapper. No, something's wrong. Along with a shiver down my spine, the stage speakers sent a loud sound to me. Uh-oh. The broadcast could pose trouble. If I face the cameras, there's a chance I'll be on film. If my face surfaces during a piddly little game like this, it'll affect my future plans. I want to run right now, but doing so would be like announcing to everyone that I'm the thief. I crossed paths with someone and took the opportunity to peek behind me. I caught a glimpse of Usami's long hair through the crowd. Usami vision. For just an instant, Haru saw the figure of a man holding the briefcase. It was Maou. She continued to push forward while trying her hardest to break through the mass of people. The next time she saw Maou, Haru ran straight into someone's arms. After a word of apology, she escaped through his side. With anxiety urging her on, she continued searching for Maou. There! Through the wall of men, women, and children, Haru could only get a glimpse of the briefcase. She surged forward with all her might in order to break through the barricade of people. The distance between them didn't decrease. Haru held out her hand through the crowded tide of passerbys. Just a bit further. Just a bit farther and I'll catch you, Maou. I passed the most chaotic part of the crowd. Did I successfully lose Usami? It's dangerous to turn my head around. There's a chance that my face will be seen. Usami might be able to reach me any second now. Should I take a taxi, perhaps? But with traffic the way it is now, no car can take off immediately. No, wait. A taxi. I watched the side mirrors mounted on the taxis that lined the street as I walked. I was in luck, as the mirrors clearly reflected the uniform and hair of Usami, still trailing me. It looks like she's holding something in her hand. She's less than 10 yards away. Usami is likely able to get a lock on me, and is in pursuit. I don't want to attract attention, but there's no other choice. I break into a run. Oh man. The tension is on. Maou suddenly took off. He didn't even turn back. How did he know that she was getting closer? Shortly thereafter, Haru saw the parked taxis strewn about the road and started to lament. Haru looked at Mao's retreating figure. He was a very tall man. It was similar to the person that had confronted her last time, the man that called himself Maou. Because his legs were longer than hers, the distance between them just continued to increase. Yet chasing him was still quite easy. To run in a crowd such as this means gathering attention. The sounds of people he pushed, the confused stares, were all focused on Maou. While pushing her way through the idle bystanders, Haru watched as Maou went on into a coffee shop. Like a rat in a trap, Haru thought. But when Haru arrived in front of the store, she cursed her own thoughtlessness. It was a large-scale chain coffee shop. The shop covered a large area, being at the crossing of a major intersection. Of course, there were more than 2 exits. Even if, for just a moment, she regretted slowing down. Maou ran in intentionally. That must mean that he knows this city like the back of his hand. Should she give chase until the end? Haru asked herself a question that needed no answer. No matter what, she wants to catch him. Both for Tsubaki and for herself. After passing through Central Boulevard, the crowd began to thin out considerably. I turned around and took a few glances. Even though it's hard to see in the nighttime lighting, the sound of people's insults reached me just fine. Looks like Usami is still on my trail. She's quite stubborn. Let's get rid of her completely. Jumping over the railing on the sidewalk, I rushed onto the road. I ran in front of cars moving at a snail's pace due to the traffic jam, and made it to the sidewalk on the other side. The car's blaring horns are unending. This should help Usami find me more easily. I continued my charge as I turned into a discreet alley. A dark alley. After seeing what awaited me there, I knew that I'd already won. This game of tag is over now. I took out a handkerchief and covered my fingers, ensuring that I won't leave fingerprints. Just how many times has she said that since 9:30? Each time she was showered in annoyed stares and condemnations. The thing she carried was bulky. Haru glanced around, chasing after Mao's image. Even though they left in the extravagance of Central Boulevard, it was still very bright out. The hundreds of cars on the street, all with lights on, were a very reliable boost to the visibility. The sound of horns suddenly rang out from the road. Glancing over, it seemed that a man who looked like Maou was casually jaywalking. Just a minute. Sorry about that. Back to it. Casually jaywalking. Maou, yes. His face was hidden behind the blindingly bright headlights of the vehicles he blitzed past. It was regrettable that there was nothing Haru could do about it. Just like that, Maou had turned into an alley between two buildings. Haru hurriedly pursued him. It was an incredibly narrow alley with a horrible line of sight. Not even two people would be able to walk abreast. Is he inviting me to follow him? Even though Haru was reluctant, there wasn't much room for her to think. As she gave chase, rushing into the darkness, she felt something weird under her foot. She lost her balance and fell forward to the ground. It was the feel of flesh. Haru was shocked, and the thing that she stepped on screamed. As she calmed down, she realized that it was a human leg. She stooped down instinctively. A peculiar putrid odor filled her nose. A few homeless men sat on the ground. They stared at Haru with lifeless eyes before losing interest again. They seemed to be distracted by something. They were kneeling, furiously moving their hands. It looked as though they were digging, as if they were trying to stir the darkened ground. Money. Haru could see a few bills poking out from under their hands. "I've already lost," she said to herself, full of regret. She lifted her head and glanced down to the other end of the alley. Maou, the enigma whom Haru had set her sights nailed to, or had her sights nailed to, was now nowhere to be seen.
Tsubaki.
A murmur escaped her lips before a wave of exhaustion overcame her. Our day-long battle had finally come to an end. Alright, and after that long engagement game with Maou, that is where we are going to call an end to this episode. So, hope you guys are enjoying it. I always really like that scene, and hope you guys did too. And I will see you all next time.